And today we will be discussing about essentials of a valid meeting. Now see, when we talk of essentials of a valid meeting, there are two aspects. One, the meeting has to be properly convened, and second, it has to be legally constituted. These are the two broad headings under which we can classify the requisites or essentials of a valid meeting. So when we say properly convened, that means a proper authority can only call for the meeting. No one else can call the meeting. So meeting has to be called by the proper authority. Secondly, notice or intimation of the meeting should be served in a proper manner. So these are the two aspects. And these have to be done before the meeting is held. Now, once the meeting has been called, what other things do we need to take care of? First is the quorum of the meeting should be present. Then the chairman has to be there who will preside over the meeting. And then the minutes of the meeting have to be maintained. Okay, now we will go and discuss these topics in detail. First is proper authority. Now the Companies Act says a meeting can be called only by a person who has the proper authority to call the meeting. Now who all has the authority? First is the board of directors of the company. Second is the members of the company under section 100. And third, the National Company Law Tribunal can call for the meeting under section 97 and 98 of the Companies Law 2013. Second is a notice has to be given. What is a notice? Notice is nothing but an intimation for holding the meeting. Under section 101, law provides that the notice of the meeting must be given at least 21 days before the annual general meeting or any other meeting has to be held. Now 21 days, when we are calculating, you have to take the day of service of the notice. That is the date on which you have posted the notice and the date on which the meeting has to be held. So these 2 days, they have to be excluded. There should be 21 clear days in between the date of issue of the notice and holding of the meeting. And under the law, we presume that the notice will be delivered within 48 hours. Within 48 hours of posting the letter, the notice will be delivered. That is a presumption. The Companies Amendment Act 2013 has brought about another change. The Companies Act says that the notice of the meeting can also be sent by email, because we are going towards an electronic world. So they are making the necessary changes in the functioning of the companies also. So it requires that the notice can also be sent by email. But the clause of 21 days is still there. Now, to whom the notice shall be served? Notice has to be given to every member of the company, legal representative of the deceased. If your member has passed away, he has died, then his legal heirs or legal representatives have to be given the notice. In case a person has become insolvent, in that case, the official assignee appointed by the government has to be given the notice. Auditors of the company, they have to be given the notice. And lastly, every director of the company has to be given the notice for every AGM or EGM that is to be held in the company. Contents of the notice. So पहले हमने कहा that the notice has to be circulated. Now what all has to be there in the notice? The contents generally deal with the time, date and place of holding the meeting along with the agenda. Agenda means the topics that are to be taken for discussion. So first is the place. The place is generally the registered office of the company. Or if the registered office is small or the company wants to entertain its members, in that case, it can be some other place within the same city where the registered office is situated. Second aspect is day or date of the meeting. It can be held on any day which is not a public holiday. It should not be a Sunday. It should not be 15th August, 26th January and 2nd October. Leaving aside these 4 or 5 days, rest any of the working days, you can hold a meeting. Now, time of the meeting. Law says meeting should start during the business hours. It should start during the business hours, but if required, it may continue after the normal business hours. And the last aspect is the types of business that have to be dealt with at the meeting. That has been listed under section 102. And the business can be ordinary and special business. Ordinary as well as special business. Now, what do we mean by ordinary and special business? Ordinary business is items of routine nature that have to be discussed. What all will come under that? Presentation of accounts, balance sheet, and the report of the directors and auditors of the company. Second is declaration of dividend. Every year, if the company wants to share its profits with its shareholders, or in other words, it wants to declare its dividend, that is done at the annual general meeting, and it is a part of the ordinary business. Third, appointment of directors in place of those retiring. And similarly, appointment of auditors of the company. And another thing is ordinary business is transacted by passing ordinary resolution. Now, what is ordinary resolution, bache? Say, for example, you are 70 in the class and we want to take a voting on some part. 40 say yes and 30 say no. So there is a clear majority of persons who are in favor and people who are not in favor. So we will say this is an ordinary resolution. Deciding things by simple majority. That is done in ordinary resolution. Next is special business. All matters other than the ordinary business, they are treated as special business. What all comes under special business? Removal of a director, issue of bonus shares by the company, issue of right shares to the existing shareholders, and election of a person as director other than a retiring director. Okay, so you should know the difference. Removal of the director. In ordinary business, it was reappointment. And if it is election of a person as director other than a retiring director, you want to bring in a new director. In that case also, you will require a special resolution to be passed. So that is about the notice. Now, third essential is quorum of the meeting under section 103. First of all, what do we mean by quorum? Quorum is minimum number of members who must be present in order to constitute a valid meeting. If the quorum is not present, the meeting shall not be considered as a valid meeting. Then how much or how many number of members should be present? Under section 103 of the Companies Act 2013, it says 5 members if the number of members of the company is less than 1,000, 15 members if the number of members of the company is more than 1,000 but less than 5,000, and 30 members should be present if the number of members is more than 5,000. And another interesting thing here is that the quorum has to be present at the commencement of the meeting. When the meeting is to start, at that time, we have to ensure that these many people are present. After that, they may or may not be present. But when the meeting has to start, these many number of people have to be present in the meeting. That is the quorum. Fourth essential is the chairman of the meeting under section 104. Now, under section 45, usually it is the chairman of the board of directors who will act as the chairman of the meeting or who will preside over the meeting. If the chairman is not present within 15 minutes of starting of the meeting, then under section 46, any of the directors present shall be elected as the chairman of the meeting. Let's say there are 5 directors who are present. The chairman is not there. Out of those 5, any one person can be made the chairman for that meeting. He will not be the chairman of the company. He will be only the chairman for that particular meeting. Now, section 47 says that if none of the directors is willing to act as the chairman, then the members who are present at the meeting, they shall choose any one of the members to be the chairman of the meeting. So there are 3 clauses. First, under section 45, the chairman of board of directors can be the chairman of the meeting. If he is not present, under section 46, any of the directors can become the chairman of the meeting. If directors are not ready, then under section 47, any of the members can become the chairman of the meeting. Now, this topic of chairman is very important from examination point of view because you can get a separate question on the chairman of the meeting. So powers of the chairman. First is, he has the authority to preside over the meeting of the company. Whatever agenda is to be taken up, if any poll is to be done, or to maintain the or to ensure the effectiveness of the meeting, the validity of the meeting, the chairman has to see to it. Second, power to decide priority of speakers. When 2 or 3 members present or directors, they want to put forward their point, the chairman will see who is to be given the chance first and who is to be given the chance next. But he cannot deny the chance to speak to any of the members. Third, power to stop discussion. If on any topic there is some discussion, there is some, you can say, argument going on, the chairman has the right that he can stop that argument. He can intervene in between and ensure that the meeting is carried out properly. This is just to check that the members or the directors do not go on unnecessarily lingering on one particular point. Fourth, power to put motions to vote. If at any time a voting is required to be done on any agenda that is taken up, in that case, it is the chairman of the meeting who can call for the vote to be done. Fifth, right to use casting vote. Now, what is the casting vote? First of all, at times it may happen that for any voting that is done, out of the 50 people present, 25 are in favor and 25 are against. So no particular majority is there. No proper decision can be taken up. So in that case, the final deciding vote that the chairman will give, that is known as the casting vote. And this is a special right that has been given to the chairman. Usually the chairman does not cast his vote. It is only whenever there is a, you can say, lockup, or when there is no clear distinction between what to be decided. In that case, the chairman will cast his vote. Sixth, power to expel disorderly persons. People who are creating unnecessary problem in the meeting. The chairman has the right to tell those people to leave the meeting. To expel means to tell them to leave the meeting or to throw them out. Seventh, to give ruling on point of order. If any agenda is taken up for discussion, all the members who are present, they will be putting forward their points. And then whatever is the final decision, whatever is the final resolution that is to be passed, the chairman will announce that resolution. Eighth, power to declare results of the voting. Whenever there is a voting that is done between the members present, the result of the voting is declared by the chairman. Ninth, power to get chairman's speech published. All of you must have seen the annual reports of the company. In the annual report of the company that is circulated to the shareholders, or which is submitted to the SEBI or the ROC, an abstract of the chairman's speech is published. And he has the authority to order the concerned people or to designate the concerned people in the office to get that speech published. Last, to adjourn the meeting. Adjourn means to postpone it to a future date. If the quorum is not present, or the agenda has not been completed properly, or because there was some, you can say, ruckus created in the meeting, and hence the entire topics could not be taken up for discussion, the chairman has the right to adjourn the meeting. Again, when he has to adjourn the meeting, the rule of the date has to be followed. He cannot adjourn it to a public holiday, and it has to be presided over within the business hours of the company. So these are the 10 powers of the chairman. Next is duties of the chairman. His first and foremost duty is to see that meeting has been duly convened and is properly constituted. Convened and is properly constituted. What does this mean? He has to ensure that proper notice for the meeting was given, the quorum was present, and that his own appointment is regular and in order. The person who is acting as the chairman of the meeting should ensure that he is properly acting as the chairman. Second, he needs to ensure that all items that are listed in the business to be taken up, they are taken up as per the agenda. They are taken up in the order that has been set out in the agenda. Third, it is the duty of the chairman to give reasonable opportunity to speak to people who want to present their views, especially people holding minority shares or people of a particular class of shareholders. So he has to give everyone an opportunity. And if there are many people who want to speak out, he will decide the priority, he will decide the sequence in which they will speak. Fourth, to maintain the decorum of the meeting. Decorum means that none of the members should use any abusive language or should do any wrong behavior, or in other words, there should be peace and harmony in the meeting. Not like the people they fight in the parliament. No, it is the duty of the chairman that he has to ensure that people behave in the proper manner. Fifth, duty to properly ascertain the sense of the meeting. The basic purpose for which the meeting has been called, that has to be delivered, that has to be communicated to the members, and requisite action has to be taken. It should not be that they keep on discussing matters which are not listed in the agenda or which are not of priority. He has to ascertain what is important and what needs to be taken up. And last, sixth is, it is his duty to exercise casting vote in case there is equality of votes for any voting that has been taken up in the meeting. The next essential is proxy under section 105. Now, what is a proxy? Now, you must also be using that word when you depute one of your friends to attend the class on your behalf. So similarly, in case of a company meeting, under section 105, if a person authorizes, a member authorizes any other member to attend the meeting on his behalf and do the voting on his behalf, we call that as a proxy. Now, appoint someone as a proxy form needs to be filled up. And that proxy form has to be submitted in the office of the registrar of the companies at least 48 hours before the meeting. It has to be signed by the person who is a member of the company and who is appointing someone as a proxy. But he can revoke it at any time before the meeting. Now let's say there's a member A, he has appointed X as his proxy and he has submitted that form with the company. But after 3-4 days, the meeting is still to be held after 1 week. So after 3-4 days, he decides to appoint Y as his proxy. And hence he nominates Y as the proxy. Automatically, the proxy of X will get cancelled and Y will become the proxy. Or he himself wants to go to attend the meeting. So he can cancel the proxy at any time before the meeting. Now the interesting part is a proxy has no right to speak at a meeting and hence he cannot take part in any discussions. This is laid down under section 105 of the Companies Act 2013. However, a proxy can demand a poll, vote for a poll, and he can also use his vote differently from what the member had requested him to do. Member has told him to vote for A, but he may vote for B. The member cannot hold him liable or the member cannot bind him later on. Now the sixth essential is the persons who will be entitled to vote at the meeting. First is equity shareholders. Equity shareholders, they can vote on every resolution that is passed in the company. Second is preference shareholders. Preference shareholders can vote only on the resolutions that are going to directly affect them. Holders of share warrants. Now, share certificates are different from share warrants. And the holders of share warrants usually do not participate in the voting of the company. They can do it only if the articles of association of the company permit them to do. Next is your joint holders, where shares are in the name of 2 or more than 2 people. In that case, the vote of the senior most holder is counted. Now there's an interesting thing. An insolvent, he can vote if his name is there in the register of members. So till the time that his name is there in the register of members of the company, an insolvent can cast his vote. Once his name is removed from the register of members, he cannot cast his vote after that. The sixth and seventh point, representatives of corporates and central or state governments. Now see what happens. Many a times the government, whether state or central, holds certain shares in a company, or a company may hold shares in other company. So these people, they cannot come directly to attend the meeting. Hence, they appoint certain people as their representatives at the meeting. These representatives, they are not called the proxy. They are not proxy. It will be deemed as if these parties are attending the meetings themselves. Last is a proxy. A proxy can vote only on a poll, and and not on a vote by show of hands under section 105. So whenever there is a polling, he can cast his vote. But if there is simple voting by show of hands, a proxy cannot vote at the meeting. Seventh essential, resolution of a meeting. See, resolution is very important topic because it will be covered when you are at length writing about the essentials of a meeting. Plus, you can get a separate question regarding resolution of a meeting. Now, a resolution is defined as formal decision of the meeting on any motion before it. Any agenda that has been taken up for discussion. Once the final decision on that is done, that decision finally becomes a resolution because it is passed and accepted by the members. Now the resolutions, they are of different categories. First is ordinary resolution under section 114 subsection 1. We discussed this earlier also, that ordinary resolution is a resolution passed by simple majority of the members entitled to vote. That means if there are 50 people present and 30 have said yes and 20 have said no, the majority is towards 30. So that is an ordinary resolution. An ordinary resolution is sufficient to affect any transaction within the powers of the company. All items of routine nature that have to be taken up, they are passed through ordinary resolution. They normally do not require any filing with the registrar of companies. We generally do not require to file a copy of the ordinary resolution with the ROC. However, there are certain exceptional circumstances where we may require to file that copy. Thirdly, where agendas require only ordinary resolution. They are approval of the statutory report, election of directors, declaration of dividend, appointment of auditors, and so on. So all these things, they are passed only by ordinary resolution. Second is special resolution. Now you have to understand this very nicely. A resolution, when the votes cast in favor of a resolution are not less than 3 times the votes cast against the resolution. So if 50 people are present, let's say the votes are 25 and 25. This will not be a special resolution. In order to make it a special resolution, the votes have to be cast in such a manner, let's say 40-10. These are against and these are in favor. So it has to be 3 times. 10 threes are 30. We are having 40. So at least 30 votes should have been polled here. So in order to pass the resolution as an ordinary resolution. Cases in which the special resolution is required. First is alteration of memorandum of association. See, all of you know that memorandum of association is a very important document that defines the relationship of the company with the outside world. Hence, if there is any change that is made in the memorandum of association of the company, that is going to affect many outsiders also. Hence, law has laid down that any such change that you want to do, it will be passed by a special resolution. Similarly, the change regarding the name of the company. It is the identity of the company, the name of the company. So if a company wants to change its name, special resolution has to be passed. Third, to alter the articles of association. If any changes have to be made on the relationship or authority responsibility of the directors, the members of the company, that is the changes in the articles of association, that can be done only by passing this special resolution. Fourth, if the company wants to create reserve capital. Reserve capital means some proportion of the profits you want to hold back and you want to use them at some emergent time in the future. So that portion is known as reserve capital. So if any company wants to make a reserve capital, it wants to create a reserve capital for future use, a special resolution has to be passed to that effect. The reason is, if the company is creating reserve capital, it will be giving dividends at a lower rate, or it may not give dividends to its members. So again, interest of a large number of people might be affected. So government has put the requirement of special resolution. Fifth, to authorize the payment of interest out of capital. If interest has to be paid to creditors, or you did not return the reserve minimum subscription that was to be paid back, and you are required to pay interest, and you want to use it out of the capital, special resolution has to be passed. Sixth is to make the liability of the directors unlimited. Usually the directors have limited liability, but in certain special cases, you want to make their liability unlimited, special resolution has to be passed to that effect. And last, when you need to wind up the company, if there are to be changes in, or the company has to be closed, in that case, the special resolution has to be passed. If the company has to be wound up, and it is done voluntarily, not through the court. Then the third category is resolutions requiring special notice. Now, notice is an information or intimation about the meeting that is given to the different parties. But at times we require to give special notice. Now, under section 115, special notice is required to pass the resolutions of appointment of auditor in place of retiring auditor. Now, why special notice? Because the auditor we had appointed earlier does not want to continue. So we need to give details of the new auditor that we want to appoint. So it requires a special notice. Similarly, appointment of director in place of a retiring director. Under section 160, the director who is retiring, he does not want to continue as a director. He has expressed his unwillingness to continue. Again, the notice that is circulated, it will have a special notice giving details of the new parties who would be willing to act as directors of the company. Third is, if the company wants to remove a director before the expiry of his term. In that case also, under section 169, a special notice has to be given. This notice has to be served to that director also, and the reason that you want to remove him has to be mentioned in the special notice that is given to the different parties. And last is passing of resolution by ballot. Now, this is a provision that has been by the Companies Act 2013. What happens is the shareholders of the company, they are spread far and wide. And it may be practically not feasible for them to attend the meeting whenever we want. So the law says that such shareholders can participate in the meeting by postal ballot. That means a form is sent to them, which is a ballot. They will fill it and post their opinion, or they will post their viewpoint to the company, and that is known as postal ballot. So hence, by this method, all shareholders have the chance to participate in the decision making of the company. Otherwise, what will happen? Only those who have gone to attend the meeting, they would be participating directly in the decision making. Next is minutes of the meeting. Again, a very important essential under section 118. Now, minutes means the official record of the meetings of the company. It is a summary of the business transacted, the decisions that have been taken, and the resolutions that have been passed at the meeting. Every company is required to maintain separate minutes for every general meeting that is held, for every meeting of the board of directors, for every meeting of the committee that is formed from the board of directors, and also for every resolution that has been passed by postal ballot. Signing of the minutes. Every page of the minutes has to be signed by the chairman of the company, and the record has to be maintained. It is not that you can write the minutes and then paste it. No, it has to be written in a proper register, or a file has to be maintained. But you cannot paste them on the pages. Then there are loose leaf minutes. Because nowadays we do half of the work electronically. So in the digital age, the provision has been made for loose leaf minutes. The pages containing minutes are duly typed and serially numbered. Each page is initialed or signed, and the last page is dated and signed by the chairman of the company. These loose leaves, they are bound at reasonable interval, not exceeding 6 months. The loose leaves are kept in safe custody under lock and key. And the responsibility is that with the company secretary and the chairman of the company. Now, contents of the meeting. What all would the minutes contain? A fair and correct summary of the proceedings thereat, and all appointments, details of all appointments of officers that have been made at the meeting. It will contain full details. Who all was standing for the meeting, who all voted for, and how many voted against the different contenders, and all those details will be written down. Now, if default is made in maintaining the minutes, company shall be liable to a penalty of rupees 25,000, which may extend to rupees 1 lakh. And every officer shall be liable to a penalty of rupees 5,000. So these are